Welcome back to Rogue's Nerdery. This is your host, Jack. Today I'm here by myself, which is a little different. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the Final Fantasy 16, specifically the demo. I finished both parts of the demo, and I don't want to bash on it too much, but I don't think I'm going to be picking this one up. Although everybody online seems to love the game, I think it's pretty good, but I'm not really impressed. But first, let me mention, follow us on Spotify and everywhere you listen, pretty much on every platform. If you do follow us on Spotify, you can answer the question about what you want us to talk about next. If you want to contact us, you can email us at roguesnerdery@gmail.com. It's ROGUESNERDERY@gmail.com to just say hello or suggest something for us to talk about. Or if you hate us, let us know. Say whatever you want and say. You can follow us on Instagram at RoguesNerdery for episode updates. Alright, now that's out of the way. I want to talk a little bit about my experience with Final Fantasy. The first time I saw a Final Fantasy game, I believe it was Final Fantasy VIII. My neighborhood, or my childhood neighbor, who was also my best friend at the time, he brought it over and was playing it, and it was like this weird, I just remember thinking, it's in some sort of weird school, and, there's nothing really going on because he was lost, and it was really boring and strange, and then he went outside, and there's monsters. I just thought that was crazy. At this point in my life, I don't think I experienced any JRPGs or anything like that. So it was very different, and it was very early in the game, so I really had no idea what this game was about at all, and he didn't like it, so he just left it at my house. Once I played it for myself and I experienced that opening cutscene, which is amazing in Final Fantasy VIII, I kind of fell in love with the game. And I ended up making it all the way to... I usually made it to the last disc, and then I didn't actually finish the game. And then one year I was like, okay, my New Year's resolution, I need to finish Final Fantasy VIII, finally. And I ended up doing it. That same friend introduced me to Final Fantasy VII also. I wasn't really a big fan. I liked the gameplay, I think it's really good, but I wasn't never really a huge fan of 7. And when 9 came out, I got that, and I thought 9 was really good. I did finish that game. It actually had a 2-player mode where you can assign characters controllers, so me and my brother kind of played it together and finished the game. My sister also enjoyed Final Fantasy, and so we were kind of a Final Fantasy house. And when 10 came out, Final Fantasy 10 was her shit, and also mine too. I'm pretty sure we all played it. 10 was just amazing. The graphics were amazing. Everything was amazing about it at the time. We just loved it. And then there was 12. I thought 12 was a really cool idea, and I enjoyed it for a little while, but I don't know what it was about the story and the character names, and there's just kind of too much going on for me to really follow and enjoy, with all the different kingdoms and this person's name and that person's name. Usually Final Fantasy is a little more simpler. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I just kind of fell off. I never finished it. I always wanted to go back, but I never did. And I guess I should mention Final Fantasy 11, if you don't know, is an MMO. And so that time, that was PS2 era. You had to have a special adapter to play online and stuff, and I didn't have that. And I don't think my parents would have bought a monthly subscription for me to play that either. So I never really got into that. And then 13 came out, and I liked 13. Everyone else in the world hated it, apparently. It's one of those things where it's over time it just gets more appreciated, more loved, I guess. At the time confused everyone because it was more of like a linear experience as far as like exploration. It wasn't open world, and every Final Fantasy is always open world, and so that kind of confused people. Like, it was different. The combat system was very different. I liked it. I didn't think it was that bad. I did end up, like, I played mostly through it, and then I ended up just putting it down and not coming back to it for a long time. And the storyline was pretty confusing. It was really weird. They had weird names for stuff, and I picked it up again a while later just because I wanted to finish it finally, and I did it. Man, I was satisfied with the ending, I guess, but I didn't really understand what was going on, and that was fine. All I wanted to say was that I finished it. And then there's 14. Oh boy. I wanted to play 14 because it was like a new Final Fantasy MMO, and it was on PS3, I believe, and I was ready to like hop in and play this one online. I never played 11, so I was like, okay, 14 is where it's at. And it had a really weird like launcher, and it wouldn't let me get into the game, and you had to make like a Square Enix account separate from like your PlayStation account, and I couldn't play the game. Like I bought the game, I owned it and everything, and I couldn't get in due to some error, and so I just gave up until years later decided to try again on PS4, I believe. I got in and I played it finally, and I was like, I don't like this at all. So I guess all that effort and time that I wasted trying to fix these issues and get into this game was for nothing. I don't know. It wasn't for me. I guess it was really bad on controller. I should have had a keyboard. Maybe I would have thought of it better, but overall, I'm not really like an MMO person in the first place. I just thought I'd like it because it's Final Fantasy, and I love Final Fantasy. Then the Final Fantasy Dark Ages, which is basically 13 did so bad that they were so afraid to make 15. They had all this weird shit planned. It was like oh god, here we go. Final Fantasy 13 was supposed to be a success, and then they were going to have Final Fantasy Versus 13, and then Final Fantasy 13 Agito or something like that. Like, they had all this weird stuff planned, and 13 really bombed. So then they're like, oh shit, we gotta do something else. So then they turned like the Versus 13 thing into Final Fantasy 15, and it took them like over 10 years to make 15, and they kind of they screwed it all up, really. Like, 15 could have been better. I like Final Fantasy 15, but it was an open world game, which is what everybody wanted because they complained about 13 not being open world. But here's the thing. The storyline of Final Fantasy 15 all takes place in one day. And so going out, exploring the world, camping, like hanging out with your bros doesn't really make sense story-wise. And so, like, it should have been a linear game like 13. 13 should have been an open world. Final Fantasy 15 also, like, the story doesn't make sense because there's a movie that they released separately that they want you to buy. And if you watch that, everything makes 100 times more sense. And also, the game wasn't finished when it was released. They kept having to do updates to add stuff to make it make sense. And they had DLCs, and they just really, like, they fell apart on it. As far as classic Final Fantasies, like 1 through 6, I mostly played number 1. I had an idea one year where I was like, okay, I'm going to play through every game in order, and I got stuck on the first one, so I never finished. Number 1, like the original version, I think the original version was N64, but the PlayStation version where they haven't added in any extras like a map or anything, like, it's really hard. It's super grindy. I think I made it 70% through, and I never finished because they don't tell you that basically the only characters that are good are warriors and mages, and if I just picked like one of each, so I had one warrior, one black mage, one red mage, and one thief, and the thief is basically useless. So I think if I restarted the game and chose a different party, I could definitely get through it, but after making all that progress, I didn't feel like it, so I kind of gave up on that. There's one point where I did start for a little bit. I don't remember much about it though. I only played it for like 20 minutes maybe. Oh yeah, don't forget Dissidia Final Fantasy, which came out on PSP, which was awesome. I love those games. It's basically like, characters from Final Fantasy fight each other. There's like one character and one villain, or sometimes two characters or villains from each Final Fantasy, and there's like a whole storyline that's going on, but storyline's kind of crazy and whatever, but the gameplay was really good. Kind of just like run around a map and then you have access to characters' abilities. This is a really cool game. They did make a PS4 port of Dissidia that was kind of terrible, mostly. Like, you couldn't do one-on-ones, you could only do like 3 versus 3, but the thing that made it really bad was the server issues. It took forever to get into a battle, so that kind of killed the game. Otherwise, pretty good. It was meant to be an arcade game, but they decided to try to port it over because that's what everybody wanted, but it didn't work out. I think I'd like to see them make a new Dissidia and like really dedicate a lot of time to it. That would be amazing. The Final Fantasy VII remake was pretty cool, but I kind of just fell off of that too. I know I do this a lot, but I don't know. Something about the combat, I didn't really love it. And then I found out later about the whole twist. Spoiler alert. It's got sort of a twist ending. It deals with time travel and stuff, so I think that's pretty cool. I don't think I'm going to go back and finish it, but part 2 looks pretty good so far in the trailer they just released, so I think I'll pick that up and just start from there. Or maybe I won't. We'll see. I'm not the hugest fan of Final Fantasy VII, but I do like it. Let's talk about Final Fantasy Strangers of Paradise. It's made by the people who made Ninja Gaiden, so it's a very technical action game, but it's very cool. Lots of cool moves, lots of cool weapons. The storyline for that game is basically just a remake of the original Final Fantasy, but kind of different. It's very cool. I definitely recommend it if you are into very hard fighting games. If you've never played a Final Fantasy game before, I'd say start with either 7 or 10, or 8 or 9 are good too. Those are my favorites. 15, I don't know. I mean, you can really just start anywhere. None of them are it's not linear. Every game has similar concepts in them, but they're not necessarily connected. So if you are feeling intimidated, wow, there's 16 of those games, I don't even know where to start, it doesn't matter. Just pick one up and play it. Alright, and finally, the Final Fantasy 16 demo gives you kind of gives you a little bit in the past, gives you a little bit in the future. You really get to get the feel of the game, and they really wanted to make it an action game, it's like Final Fantasy trying to do God of War, and I think they could have done a little bit better as far as action sequences, the cut scenes. There's these button presses where you have to execute a finisher type move or evade a dangerous or deathly attack, but it gives you a pretty big window to hit the button, and it's not really challenging, and it's always the same button. So unlike God of War, it's you never know what button you have to press next. It's just kind of either square to do attack or R1 to dodge a deathly attack. Maybe they did it that way to make it more simple and accessible for just the average person, but I feel it should have been a little bit more challenging, a little more fun, some variety in the button presses. The cinematics are really amazing though. The graphics are great in this game, and The gameplay is pretty good. The battling, I like it. It's pretty simple. Pretty easy to get into. There's some cool moves that you can learn. Kind of brings me back to like Dragon Age 2. How it went from more of like a turn-based experience to more action. Like you can hit the button to kind of do your basic combo, and then you've got these special moves you can pull off with have cooldown times. They've gotten rid of the MP system, which normally in Final Fantasy you have like MP, which is like magic power. So they've just replaced that with like just cooldown times. Everything kind of flows really well. It's well done. The only thing I wasn't a big fan of is similar to 13, where you have to kind of take down a boss's like stagger bar in order to really like bring them down, and then you get like double damage while they're down. I'm not really like a big fan of that kind of thing. Like, I just want to use my moves and kill it. I don't want to have to bring a bar down just to get him to like go down on one knee and then try and finish him off as fast as possible before it gets back up. There are different icons, which are like summons. If you're a fan of older Final Fantasy, they're called icons in this game. But you basically equip those to your character, Clive, and you can switch back and forth. It's basically like changing move sets, so you have access to different moves depending on which icon you're using. I would have liked to see more summoning. I think being able to summon them would be really cool, but I guess it makes sense for the story if you don't, because they seem like the icons are pretty destructive in this game. Like in 15, it was kind of random, but your summon would just come out of nowhere, and they were like huge, like hundreds of feet tall. Like Ramuh would come and just like obliterate everything, or you'd have like Titan pop up out of nowhere and just kind of like smash everybody. And it's like a big cinematic thing in the middle of a battle. It was pretty epic and pretty awesome. I think the music is good. Pretty good voice acting in this game. The story, at first, I didn't really care that much, and it's the first rated M Final Fantasy, I think, besides Strangers of Paradise. The first like main game. And they made it like very Game of Thrones like, and so it was like kind of like kissing and sort of like sex scene, which is really weird. It kind of made me uncomfortable because I'm not used to that in a Final Fantasy game. And to me, it just felt like way too comparable to Game of Thrones. Like I feel like Clive is like Jon Snow, and I don't know, just the whole feel of it. It just kind of feels like a ripoff, but whatever, it's cool. Like if the story's good, it's good. At first, I didn't like the story, like I said earlier, but I kind of got more into it by the end of the demo. You get to take control of Clive's little brother, and he's pretty cool. He's like a kid. You can tell he's got powerful magic, can't really control it, so he'll blast like a big fireball, and then he'll kind of like hunch over out of breath, and that's kind of like your cooldown timer in a way without being a cooldown timer. In this game, you have party members, but you don't control them. You only control Clive, and except for your dog, you can like give them commands to attack, which is another Game of Thrones similarity is you have a fucking dog companion. But anyways, like the AI companions seem to be pretty good. I didn't feel like they were useless, and I feel like they actually killed stuff, so that was cool. So they have these door mechanics where they're like, where you're gonna have to press the button to really open the door. And I don't know if that's like masking loading screens, like stuff I've seen in other games, like in Hogwarts Legacy, where instead of having a loading screen, they just have your character kind of walk and open a door slowly. That gives the game time to load, so that way you never see screens. But this game, it just feels kind of unnecessary. Like, you go up to a door and it's like, well, press R2 to open it. It's like, okay. A minor complaint, I guess. There is a sequence towards the end of the demo where your brother transforms into his Phoenix icon and you transform into the Ifrit icon, and for some reason Ifrit is just evil trying to fuck shit up, and you have to play as the Phoenix, and like you're flying around like blasting. It's like a Kingdom Hearts gummy ship kind of thing where you're like flying a ship and shooting at stuff, but you're supposed to like try to focus on shooting him. And I thought that cinematically this is a really cool but gameplay wise, it was pretty lame and it went on for way too long. And it's really not even like a gummy ship because you can't even move the Phoenix. Like, it's just locked in place. All you do is move the cursor and shoot. And you can just hold the shoot button to let it shoot for you. And it's like this big long scene that I swear felt like 10 minutes. Somehow, the first time I did it, I lost because I didn't hit him enough, which was weird. And the second time I did it, fine. But for an action game, the action sequences are just not really up to par with other games. I know it's like their first time doing this in a Final Fantasy, really, but it could have been better. Overall, it's pretty cool. I'm not like everybody seems to love this game online, even like hardcore Final Fantasy fans. I haven't really seen too much complaints other than my own opinion, but it just kind of surprises me. I thought that a lot more people would be kind of disappointed, but I am happy Final Fantasy is back and it's doing good. That's cool. Hopefully they release the next game a lot sooner. Hope they don't try to milk this game like they did the previous one with the DLC and everything. Like, just focus on making the next one and make it good. Me personally, I think it might be repetitive, like just doing like this action over and over again and not really having sort of like a party to build up or like sort of like a kingdom building mechanic or something. But hey, I haven't played the full game. That's just my experience with the demo and stuff that I read about the full games. Oh yeah, also before I forget, it's not an open world game necessarily. There's big areas to explore, but they give you like a map to kind of point and click to travel to. So I know it's more demanding technically to make a giant open world game for something like a Final Fantasy nowadays, but I miss that aspect. Even if it's like, kind of the old school, like, the map and your character's kind of like small and like running across it. Like, I kind of miss those days. Also, there's no mini map in this game, which is very difficult for someone like me who gets lost easily. I hated that. I have a friend who's bought this game and is going to play through it, so I'll see what he says about it. Maybe I'll have him on the pod talking about that at some point. Now, what would I like to see in the next Final Fantasy game? I think I would really like them to go back to kind of the old school fantasy sort of setting, like 9. Although I'm hearing a remake rumors about 9 recently, so I guess we'll see about that. I think if they stick to kind of this action-based gameplay for the next one, or if they do a sequel, I hope they do it a little more interesting, a little more skill-based, cinematic button pressing, and maybe some party members and some people to interact with. Like in 15 was really amazing. Your characters talk to each other and like it felt real how they were just like bonded so close. Like, it was really good, which is one reason why I love BioWare games, like especially Dragon Age Inquisition. Your characters are always talking to each other and, different party members bring about different conversations. Just nice when you're traveling to have something like that. I think companionship is really important in a Final Fantasy game, and I think it always has been. Alright, that's all I have to say about Final Fantasy 16 right now, and thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us on any podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram at Rogues Nerdery, and email us at roguesnerdery@gmail.com. Tell us you love us, tell us you hate us, tell us whatever you want, I don't care. We're going to be doing some tabletop stuff soon, and we started a recording for Speed Racer, but the audio got kind of messed up, so we may revisit that. We've also got possibly Mortal Kombat and some other stuff. We want to play Signalis, talk about that. There's a lot of stuff coming up. It's just difficult to get together, but you can expect more stuff from us coming soon. Alright, I'm Jack, and I'm out of here.